Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to round 11 of the Halfords International Formula Alpha Championship in 2021. We're here at Albert Park this weekend for the penultimate round of the season. Hasn't that flown by rather quickly? We are just 2 rounds to go starting this weekend, and we have an exciting battle building up in both championships. Colin Kennedy looks like he's pretty much run away with it in the Pro Championship, but there's still battles going on for P2 with Andrew Whitehead leading with 270 points there for that battle for P2. And then the AM battle is still ongoing. Rob Whitney currently leads with 365 points, but Paul Millman and John Baker being close behind. They might be able to... Actually, no, I don't believe John Baker can catch up anymore with the number of rounds left, but Paul and Rob should be fighting that out till the end. It is currently just under 15 minutes to go in qualifying, and we have Barry Clayton leading the session for the moment. I know our timing systems don't say that, but in fact the timing system had updated to show us the new leader of the session, Colin Kennedy, with a blistering Sector 1 and Sector 3 there. He posted a 152.9 on the soft sides there after his 4th attempt. He is absolutely flying. He set a very nice lap there, currently about a second and a half clear of anyone else on track. Barry Clayton is the man next fastest. He posted a 154.6. He's currently improving according to the timing system, but he's also currently in the pits. So I'll ignore that one there. Paul Millman improves to go a 155.9. He's currently P4 in this session. Colin Kennedy actually topping out the speed trap there, 220 kilometers an hour. That's quite a high speed for these 1.4 multi-air powered Tartus FA01 cars. Yeah, 100... yeah, we'll go in kilometers. 220 kilometers an hour. He tops out the speed traps so far this session. Of course, this is an open setup championship. Drivers are allowed to tweak whatever they feel necessary on the car, but Colin does provide a base setup as well, usually a very good one like that, but Colin looks to have found a low aero setup that works quite well for him. So we see Andrew Brammer improving there to go 5th fastest with a 156.3. He's running very nicely indeed. And we'll stay on board with Colin. Actually, he's on another fast lap attempt. He's just gone purple in Sector 1 and Sector 2. A 27.8 in Sector 2 as he comes towards the end of this lap now. He's only got one more corner to negotiate, and he comes across the line. Actually, we've got a few seconds before he crosses the line, but he comes back down onto the start-finish straight. Will it be enough to build an even bigger gap? It was only his first attempt that posted him that good time there, and it does see him go faster. A 151.6. A very nice lap from Colin there. Found over a second in pace with 10 minutes to go in qualifying. I'm sure he's going to find even more time and really bring the challenge to Matt Daly, who hasn't joined the qualifying session yet, but I'm sure will be a little bit scared when he sees the time that Colin has just posted. He's currently about 3 seconds clear of anyone else on track, so it was a brilliant effort from Colin there. And do we have Matt Daly in session yet? We do not. We do have, though, Will Inglis. Will Inglis is running nicely at the moment. He's currently on for a personal best, although it looks to be that has just been deleted according to the timing system for whatever reason. It looks like Alex Smith having a bit of difficulties. He's just returned to the pits, having had a small incident that we didn't catch, unfortunately. As we see Andrew Brammer currently on for an improvement there. He's posted a very nice Sector 2 of 29.1. That's his personal best. He could do with maybe shaving a few more tenths out of that if he wants to try and push further up the field, but he should go for a bit of an improvement there. He goes 4th fastest. Yes, he improved by 1 place, at 155.5, so he's progressing nicely through this qualifying session then. Pretty much everyone other than John Baker running the soft tyre here. I haven't spoken with the drivers actually to see what tyre conditions are like at this circuit. It's quite a high-speed circuit, but we do have a couple of higher-speed corners in the mix as well, followed by actually quite a lot of heavy braking zones. So I can't imagine it is the nicest track in terms of tyres. As we see Colin setting himself up for what looks to be another attempt at a fastest lap. Actually, no, he abandons and returns to the pit, so he just maybe felt like completing an in-lap just to get a bit more of a feel for the car, a bit more of a feel for the tyres and how they're performing. He might start thinking about some stint practice. Of course, there is a big practice session beforehand, but you're still learning as you go through the sessions here. As we go on board with Barry Clayton. Barry Clayton has a personal best Sector 1, a 36.2. You see that's actually relatively competitive with the cars around him as he heads down that back straight now, what's effectively the back straight. Although it is not much of a straight, and he comes down towards turn 11, turn 12. Bit of a tricky complex that. You want to obviously scrub off enough speed to make it through in a safe manner, but you can lose a lot of time there, or find yourself running wide if you're not carrying it, if you're not scrubbed off enough speed, find yourself running wide and having to abandon a lap attempt as he comes through to the end of Sector 2 now. It's not a personal best for him. It's a 28.4. It's still relatively competitive compared to the rest of the field, so he should be on for a decent lap here. He's already P2 and he should be hoping to cement that further as he heads into the final part of the circuit now. Very, very vibrant livery on that car there as he heads round the final corner now. He rode over the curb just a little bit. That has upset the car ever so slightly, but he shouldn't have lost too much time. As we see him come across the line, and he does improve then to a 155.2. He's found a few tenths there. That should cement his P2, make him feel a little bit more comfortable. So well done for that lap there. Now, as we see on raw pace, Andrew Brammer has actually set a better lap time than Barry Clayton, but according to the timing systems, that lap has not been a valid lap according to the time systems. It hasn't improved his standings in qualifying so far. We've got just under 10 minutes to go now. As we see Will Inglis finding a very nice time there, 154.3. He is well clear of Barry Clayton, who was running P2 right up until that point, of 154.3 for Will Inglis. He's currently 8th in the championship standings, has missed a couple of rounds there, but he can hopefully push towards, or hopefully for himself there, push towards P5 in the championship standings. The lower midfield is very tight as we head into the final 2 rounds of this season. So a good qualifying here really does matter, as we see Barry Clayton looks to have had a bit of difficulties and has had to return to the pits. Now, as we see, Colin looks like he is coming towards the end of an outlap, or is at least on an outlap. But we will stay on board with Will Inglis, who is actually carrying on for another fast lap attempt. So there's certainly a lot to drag out of these tyres in qualifying session. They're not the aggressive hyper softs like we saw in Formula 1 a few years ago. They can last for more than the lap and still be competitive during qualifying. These aren't the highest speed, most high load cars in the world, shall we say. So the tyre should be able to cope with a little bit of wear and tear as we see him head through into Sector 3 now, and it wasn't a personal best in Sector 2, and it's all gone wrong on the exit of Turn 12 there. He's rode the curbs just a little bit too hard. It's quite easily happened. It looks like John Baker has gone for a bit of a sympathy spin with him as well, and that car behind, I believe that is Colin Kennedy. No, that is Will Harper. He will have to watch out and does avoid that traffic there, but what a shame for those two drivers that those attempts have come to an end like that. They'll have to return to the pits, and they'll be wanting to fix that little bit of damage there. As we see, Will Harper, I unfortunately can't switch to him in this qualifying session as my timing system isn't letting me, or rather, the graphics aren't letting me. But let's see. Actually, let's let the computer decide if it wants to show us Will Harper. It doesn't for the moment, so we'll have to wait for this attempt. But I can tell you, he's currently on for a personal best lap. He comes towards the end of it now. Let's see if we can catch him on track elsewhere. We don't, unfortunately, but Will Harper does improve by the looks of things. A 156.1 for Will Harper there. That puts him P8 in the standings at the moment. He doesn't improve. Actually, he had what looks to have been possibly a bit of an accident in Sector 3. 52nd in Sector 3 there. Saw him ending that lap, and he is starting another one now, according to the timing systems. Hopefully, we will see him on our screens in just a moment. As we see Colin Kennedy dealing with just a little bit of traffic then. It looks to be Andrew Brammer, I believe, in that car there as he goes round the outside on his fastest lap attempt. Now, this is a fast lap attempt for Colin Kennedy as he heads into Turn 3 and through Turn 4. Turn 3 is actually one place where you can, as he rides the curbs a bit too much then, has to abandon this lap by the looks of things. It looks like all 4 wheels actually took off the ground there. Yes, he does return to the pits and abandon this lap. We're on board with Will Inglis, so hasn't just started or is about to start another personal best or another fastest lap attempt. As we come into the closing stages of qualifying now, Will Harper looks to be back in the pit, actually. I was about to say it looks to be on another attempt as well, but has had to return to the pit. So drivers possibly struggling towards the end of this qualifying session, maybe pushing the cars a little bit too hard, struggling for those extra few tenths, and they're having to correct a couple of errors or find themselves on the receiving end of a couple of mistakes there. To see the car looking reasonably composed for Will Inglis then through turn 11 and turn 12. Although he wasn't at full chat, he'll be starting to build up the speed towards the end of the lap as he starts to get the tyres in the window ready for the fastest lap attempt. Riding the curbs then. These cars traditionally not a big fan of the curbs. That's a very nice turn in for the car there actually through turn 14. See him heading through the final left-right S then. That ends the lap here at Albert Park, and he heads down the start-finish straight now then, wanting to carry as much speed as possible through turn 16 as he tries to carry enough momentum to start his fastest lap attempt. So we'll stay on board with them then. Down into turn 1, leaving the braking as late as possible. You're carrying quite a bit of speed through here, actually. You want to ride that left-hand curb if possible, or these cars aren't a big fan of that. You can find the car becoming a little bit upset. No DRS here in these cars. It will be the DRS zone in Formula 1 as we head, or Formula 2 or Formula 3 for that matter, as we head into the braking zone of turn 3. Don't want to be too greedy on the throttle, otherwise you'll find the back end trying to swap around and you will have to abandon your lap. He doesn't ride that curb, that sausage curb rather, can be a little bit tempting, but you can find this car facing the wrong direction or in a wall if you're unlucky. And we've got another reasonably long straight part of the circuit, apparently 220 miles an hour on the speed track there. But no, yeah, that isn't happening with the 1.4 multi-air engine, as much as I love it. 137 miles an hour is much more realistic as we head towards the end of Sector 2 now. And what is effectively the back straight part of this circuit here, although there is another reasonably straight bit of the track coming up in just a moment. This is a bit of a tyre kill at this part of the track when you're carrying a lot of speed. You're carrying quite a high load through this left-right switch back here, as he does not improve in Sector 2. It was a personal best Sector 1. But you'll want to be careful in the race to not overload the tyres so much through Sector 2 as we come into turn 13. Riding the curb on exit there, trying to carry as much speed as possible, use as much of the track as he dares as we head into Sector 3 now. Coming towards the end of the lap, riding those curbs once again. Relatively flat curbs here. They don't look too vicious, although, as we saw in Singapore, what the curb looks like and how the curb behaves can be two very different things. And we come down the start-finish straight now, then towards the end of Will Inglis' lap. Is it enough to push towards Colin Kennedy? We've only got a minute in qualifying left, so this will be his final attempt. If it isn't the one, he does improve, and he improves by a fairly wide margin of 53.8. A very nice lap from Will Inglis there. Still nowhere near the effort of Colin Kennedy. That 151.6 seems untouchable for now. We've got a minute left in qualifying, and Matt Daly is actually with us in this session. He's currently on his fastest lap attempt. We can't join him, unfortunately, owing to the restraint of the camera system. But I can tell you he's posted a Sector 1 of a 35.9 and Sector 2 of a 28.1, so he is flying at the moment. That Sector 2, in fact, beats Colin Kennedy's best in Sector 2. Well, rather his previous in Sector 2, actually. I believe that beats. But Colin Kennedy is still the fastest man in terms of outright speed and outright pace, for that matter, on track at the moment. But Matt Daly is coming to the end of his qualifying attempt now. We're going to go on board with Will Harper, though, who is also coming towards the end of his lap, and he is looking to improve. He's got two personal bests, a Sector 1 and a Sector 2 personal best for him there. Matt Daly has just set a 153.2, so he goes second fastest in this session. It's all gone wrong for Will Harper, who on the exit of turn 16 might have got a little bit greedy with the throttle, or the car just kind of came away from him there, but for whatever reason, he has to abandon that lap attempt, and that was going very well for him. What a shame to see his qualifying come to an end like that. It's Colin Kennedy who takes pole position then for race 1 here at Albert Park this weekend. Matt Daly swooping in at the very last moment with a 153.2 to take second place, and Will Inglis running third with Barry Clayton taking 4th position. We'll have to see if it's going to be Barry Clayton or Andrew Brammer on 4th position. As we see the car looking very aggressive through that corner there. A 4-wheel slide for Matt Daly. He is going to be able to carry on this lap if he so desires, but I imagine that will have taken a bit of time from him from Sector 2. Sector 1, a 35.5 at the moment for Matt Daly. But yeah, that mistake in Sector 2 will cost him pretty handsomely, I am sure. And it does to the tune of 800ths of a second. Less than I thought, to be honest. Let's stay with him in Sector 3 to see if at the very last second I declared Colin Kennedy as taking pole. I wasn't expecting this from Matt Daly though. I didn't believe he'd made it across the line in time, but we may see Matt Daly towards the end of the session be able to take pole position from Colin Kennedy if he's lucky. He needs to find a couple of seconds, but 1.5 seconds, but it may be doable. As we head into turn 14 then. Riding that curb just a little bit, not too much. Doesn't want to upset the car, but into turn 15. This is all going very well for Matt Daly at the moment. Absolutely beautiful through the final 2 corners. He wants to unwind that wheel as quick as possible and gun it down towards the checkered flag. It won't be enough to take pole position, but he does improve on his personal best of 152.8. It's what a shame that he wasn't able to join qualifying earlier on in the session. We might have had a brilliant battle in terms of lap time between him and Colin, but nonetheless, it is Colin Kennedy on pole. Matt Daly securing P2 there. We'll join you in just a moment for race 1 here at Albert Park. And welcome to Race 1 here at Albert Park for Round 11 of the Halfords Formula Alpha International Championship. With just 2 rounds to go, every single race matters, and we have Colin Kennedy and Matt Daly lined up on the first row of the grid. Everyone is pretty much running the medium tyres apart from Will Harper and Colin Kennedy, who are running at the hard tyre, so they are thinking that the medium might not be all that happy towards the end of the race, and they're hoping perhaps to make some ground towards the end of the race. Matt Daly on those medium tyres compared to Colin on the hard. We could see a very interesting battle developing between these two. We've got just about 15 seconds until lights out now. It was Andrew Brammer who ended up taking 4th position, so well done to him in that qualifying session. But as we start to hear the revs rise and everyone getting ready to launch their cars down into turn 1, we have 6 red lights on the gantry. And we are away. Matt Daly getting a very nice launch there with those medium tyres, although Colin Kennedy is going to be able to box him off. Will Gliss absolutely flying through the pack. He's putting pressure on Matt Daly, finding himself a little bit of a gap to potentially think about a move, but he had to brake and avoid there. Colin Kennedy able to build a little bit of a gap to Matt Daly heading through turn 1 now, as we see Will Gliss flying past, as does Barry Clayton, as does Andrew Brammer, who's under pressure from Alex Smith as they go side by side into turn 3 now. Will Harper is also side by side with Paul Millman, as we see Andrew Brammer getting it just a little bit wrong under braking there and having to concede the position to Alex Smith. John Baker able to catch up to Paul Millman through that corner there. But Colin Kennedy, meanwhile, is building up a fairly healthy gap, about a second already through the first sector. He is doing very nicely indeed, keeping Matt Daly behind on those hard tyres. We see Will Gliss getting it a little bit wrong on the curb there, the curb upsetting the car, and it's spanning round. He's going to be pushed all the way back down to the bottom of the grid. P9 for Will Gliss at the moment. Gone very wrong for him through that corner there as we join Barry Clayton, who's under pressure from Alex Smith. Will Harper getting past Andrew Brammer, but Alex Smith gaining ever so slightly on Barry Clayton as they come down through turn 10. As we see Alex having that slipstream, that should help him out immensely as we come into sector 3 now. He's ever closer. He's just about 3/10 behind him now, as we see. It looks like the back end was getting a little bit unhappy for Alex Smith there, but Alex Smith, it's gone all wrong for him on the exit of turn 12. He caught the grass just a little bit, and it's the lack of grip, it's just flicked him round. Yeah, he is now running P8, and it looks to be he's going to have some substantial damage there, although the gravel may have slowed him down enough, if there was any there. It was only about a 20-mile-an-hour impact with the wall by the looks of things. He's running P8, though, soon to be under pressure from Will Gliss if he's not careful. So Will Gliss still has a race on his hands, despite the earlier issues in the lap, as we see Barry Clayton now enjoying a bit of clean air as a result of that. He's actually got past him, has Will Gliss. Maybe Alex Smith carrying a bit of damage on that car, unfortunately. What a way for his race 1 to start. Hopefully he'll be able to claw back something else from this weekend as we enter the next race. We have Barry Clayton enjoying a little bit of clean air now as he heads into turn 1 to start the next lap. He's got about a second between him and Will Harper. Will Harper's done a very nice job on this race start, capitalising on other people's mistakes. He's able to push his way up through the grid quite nicely, finding himself running P4 already. A podium could be on the cards if he plays his cards right and is able to get past Barry Clayton. We know that Will Harper has some immense pace behind him. He just has a little bit of a tendency to get it a little bit wrong under pressure occasionally. As we see Matt Daly and Colin Kennedy swapping places. Oh dear, what's happened there for our championship leader? We wouldn't expect some sort of mistake, but I believe that is exactly what's happened. Yeah, 41 seconds, sector 1 from Colin Kennedy there. We've missed a bit of an error on behalf of Colin Kennedy. Yeah, that puts a bit of a damper on things. He's still relatively comfortable out in P2 at the moment, but if he's carrying any damage, Barry Clayton may be a little bit spurred on by the fact that he now sees Colin Kennedy's rear wing right up in front of him and maybe thinking about catching up to him, although he still does have Will Harper to worry about. We all of a sudden have a 3-way battle for second place going on here. Colin Kennedy is now going to have to use all of the life that he can in those hard tyres and push towards Matt Daly if he has any chance of taking away this race 1 win now. But it looks like he's got some front wing damage to be contending with. But those hard tyres may actually have been a very nice choice. We see another not brilliant sector for Colin Kennedy in Sector 2. This hasn't been the race that he would have wanted, although, as I mentioned, he'll be feeling fairly comfortable in his current position anyway. Will Harper on those hard tyres have just set a purple Sector 1. So those hard tyres already in the window and already proving that they've got the performance to be competitive in this race. As we see Will Harper come across the line, will he take that fastest lap away from Matt Daly? He doesn't, but it's still a very nice lap there. 1:56 flat, only 0.6 off Matt Daly with this much fuel on board and with traffic to contend with. Of course, a little bit of the aero performance of the car will be taken away by the car in front of him, although we'll be, of course, getting the benefit of the slipstream as well. Yeah, a very nice lap from Will Harper there, showing that the hard tyres may be an interesting call here. We might start to see more drivers swapping onto them for race 2, the reverse race, coming up in about half an hour's time. As we see, Barry Clayton actually a little bit more aggressive on the exit of turn 4 there. Colin still not able to catch up. I think he's going to struggle to catch up to Matt Daly at this point in time. He's got about a 4-second delta between the two, and he has what looks to be a fairly substantial amount of front wing damage, although he has just set a purple Sector 1. So this is, of course, Colin Kennedy. Never count Colin Kennedy out. He may be responding. He may be building, psyching himself back up again and getting ready to push towards Matt Daly, and he has found about half a second, actually, through the first half of this lap. So don't count Colin Kennedy out by any means. As we see, John Baker and Will Inglis currently our next closest rivals on track, aside from Barry Clayton and Will Harper. John Baker capitalising on that poor start for, I believe it was Alex Smith, actually, who we saw have a little bit of an incident through turn 1, but he currently finds himself P8 and looks to be struggling with the car just a little bit through turn 11 there. The back end getting away from him. Did a very nice job to catch it there. At such high speeds, it can be quite difficult to catch these cars because the aero basically stalls when the car rotates in such a manner. And the tyres get overloaded as well. Matt Daly just set an absolute flyer there, 153.8. A lot of other drivers couldn't touch that with quali fuel loads, and he has done that at this stage in the race, but Colin Kennedy has responded with a 153.9 with front wing damage. That is a mighty impressive job, and on the hard tyres as well. Don't you forget it. Very impressive job from Colin Kennedy then for that attempt at a fastest lap. He was scuppered by about a tenth by Matt Daly. But these two certainly pushing, certainly showing that they mean to go on to the bitter end here in race 1. We see a little bit of oversteer from Matt Daly on corner exit there. Might not be the most powerful engines in the world, but they can certainly still upset a race car, these 170 horsepower 1.4 multi-air engines. Colin Kennedy is starting to build a fairly comfortable gap to Barry Clayton, the next car behind him, currently running P3. And Will Harper, who we saw set an impressive previous lap on last time going, hasn't been able to gain a little bit on Barry Clayton. He might be hoping for a little bit of an mistake going on in front, as it looks to be that Alex Smith has got past John Baker now for P8. Yeah, Will Harper might be hoping for an error out in front, or maybe he's conserving those hard tyres, or waiting till the end of the race when the hard tyres will have a bit more wear or a bit more life left in them, where he can use that and try and gain on Barry Clayton right at the end when the driver's feeling a little bit tired, the car's low on fuel, and the tyres are tired as well. He might be conserving, might be looking after the car for now to try and make that push towards the end of the race. See Matt Daly coming around the final part of the circuit to start another lap now. It's about 4 seconds between him and Colin Kennedy. Colin Kennedy still setting those purple Sector 1s. He's got Sector 1 absolutely dialed in. As we see Matt Daly, though, setting a purple Sector 3, 153.6. That fastest lap just keeps coming down. It didn't on that occasion for Colin Kennedy. Wow, it was very aggressive on turn-in from Matt Daly. He must have that car on a fairly aggressive setup, or he's just feeling very confident on the brakes. Saw the back end kind of swing out as he bites the corner with the front end. That was a very, very impressive bit of driving to watch from Matt Daly. As we see him come round turn 4 now, being careful to avoid that big sausage curb that we've seen upset these 1.4 multi-air powered Tartus FA01 cars. The gap between Colin Kennedy and Barry Clayton now about 6 seconds. It's not as if Barry Clayton isn't travelling at some pace, he certainly is, but Colin Kennedy and Matt Daly are just on another level at the moment, as Barry Clayton's only a couple of tenths behind Will Harper in terms of lap-by-lap pace. So that should be sparing Will Harper on a little bit. He'll be hoping to close up that gap. Although Matt Daly is absolutely flying at the moment. I'm not sure if Colin's had a little bit of who was just a little bit slower through Sector 2 by the looks of things was Colin Kennedy. The gap between him and Matt Daly now stands at about 5 seconds. As it stands at the moment, we don't have Andrew Whitehead in the session, unfortunately. But as it stands at the moment, Matt Daly could really use this weekend to help his push towards P2 in the driver's standings. Currently on 239 points, with Andrew Whitehead on 272 points. But as I mentioned, Andrew Whitehead not here at the moment. Matt Daly currently leading this race. It could be a very beneficial weekend for him. Hoping to take away those all-important 50 points from this weekend would see him standing in P2 at the moment and would give us a very interesting fight for P2 in the standings. Colin Kennedy obviously pretty much walking away with this title at the moment. So Will Harper setting a very nice previous lap that time round. Currently in P4 at the moment is Will Harper. He's now only just over a second behind Will Harper. I'm not sure if Barry Clayton's had a bit of an error there, or Will Harper is starting to find those hard tyres be his friend at the midpoint in this race now. He's now comfortably in slipstream range of Barry Clayton in front of him. And he can now think about starting to put that pressure on as he gets ever closer. Barry Clayton will definitely be noticing him. Those wing mirrors on these cars are very small, but what he will see from them is the front wing of Will Harper's car. He'll be occupying all of the surface area of that wing mirror if he can, trying to use as much track as possible to get ever closer to him. That gap now standing at about 1.5 seconds as they head through into Sector 2 now. On the highest speed parts of the circuit other than the start-finish straight. You've got the heavy braking zone, that is turn 7, and then you set yourself up nicely for turn 11. I've just realised I've got my corner numbers wrong more than likely because Albert Park has recently changed its layout, but we are running the old layout. I think the better layout, although we haven't raced on this one on the new layout yet. So yes, add or take away a couple of digits from my corner numbers from the past 10 or so minutes, owing to the track changes here at Albert Park, where we are running the older layout here at the moment. And hopefully that is one that everyone is familiar with. But as we see, Will Harper now still in that 1.5 second range to Barry Clayton out in front as we head into the final part of the circuit now. Matt Daly still banging in those fastest laps of 1:53.5, doing a very nice job out in front at the moment. And Will Harper will now be enjoying the benefits of that slipstream, as you see his car actually about 3 kilometers an hour faster in the speed traps than Barry Clayton out in front. But Barry Clayton has responded to the challenge from Will Harper behind, setting a 1:55.5, his fastest lap of the race so far. That beats Will Harper's fastest of the... it doesn't beat his fastest of the race so far, but it is faster than Will Harper's previous attempt as he gets ever closer again, heading in to turn 3. And heading through turn 4 now, they are separated by only a second. It got as close as about 7/10, but Barry Clayton leaving the braking to the very last minute there sees him escape just a little bit on exit. See, further down the order, meanwhile, we have Will Inglis having such an impressive start before it all came undone over that curb. Fighting his way back through the pack now, he's hunting down Paul Millman. Paul Millman currently doing a very nice job in the AM standings, currently second in the AM standings. Rob Whitney not present this evening either. Rob Whitney currently leading the AM standings. Paul Millman can use this as an opportunity to come ever closer to him. As he leads the AM races, he will take away those all-important points and be pretty much on level pegging with Rob Whitney as we enter the final race of the year, Abu Dhabi. So all to play for in the championship standings in both categories, but it is Will Inglis who's trying to get past Paul Millman at the moment as they head through turn 10. And he will be starting to enjoy that slipstream as you head through turn 11, turn 12, where you want to carry as much speed as possible without running your car onto the grass, otherwise you'll find yourself pointing in the wrong direction, as we saw in qualifying, as we saw with Alex Smith, and it looks like Will Inglis was a lot more confident through that. section of the track than Paul Millman. He's now found about 5/10 on Paul Millman. Colin Kennedy second, the fastest lap of the race so far, 1:53.4, but it is Will Inglis that we're focusing on at the moment, who is now putting the pressure on Paul Millman as we head into the final corner of the circuit, effectively. 2 more corners to go, but it is the final part of the circuit, using as much track as he can, riding over the pit entry line just a little bit as the car rotates on him, and he now has the slipstream. He now tries to gain on him down the start-finish straight into turn 1. He is gaining. He's gaining. Will he dart his car out? He will. He's putting the pressure on now. He's showing that he's there. Is he going to be very late on the brakes? He will be just about there. He's able to get that move done under braking. Very nice from Will Inglis heading into turn 1. Boxed off that move securely. That was a mighty effort from Will Inglis to get that move done in one fell swoop. As we go back to the battle for P3, Will Harper gaining on Barry Clayton still, but he's not been able to get past yet. About 0.8 of a second separating these drivers now as we enter Sector 2 and head towards the fastest part of the circuit. Made even faster by the track changes that I forgot. In my defence, we haven't raced there in the upper echelons of motorsport yet. I don't believe is there any racing going on in Australia at the moment? Of course, the ongoing COVID pandemic affecting the racing world in all parts of the globe, but Will Harper is gaining through turn 11 now. He's starting to ride the gearbox of Barry Clayton. Barry Clayton will be feeling the pressure now as they come towards Sector 3 now, the final part of the lap. Will Harper's carrying a lot of speed off the exit of that corner, actually. He's thinking about going side by side. He's positioning his car in such a way that puts pressure on Barry Clayton. He's not thinking about a move from that far back, I don't think. Very fast through the speed traps there for Will Harper. I don't think he's thinking about a move from that far back, but it's all about pressure. It's all about intimidation. It's all about forcing an error from the car in front, or making them, or you controlling the car in front, if you will, making them do what you want. As we head through the final corner, a little bit of a lock-up for Will Harper then. He doesn't want to do that too much, although he is on the hard tyres. They can take a little bit more of a beating than the medium tyres that pretty much everyone else is running. As we see him following Barry Clayton down the start-finish straight, taking advantage of that slipstream as much as possible as we head through Sector 1 now. Will Harper still just a little bit faster on track at the moment than Barry Clayton as we head through turn 3. But I don't believe the pace delta is enough at the moment. And Will Harper rides that sausage curb. Very lucky it didn't go wrong for him then. The car became quite upset at that, as you saw. I believe the right-hand side of the car actually lifted up off the ground. We were on board, so we didn't quite see. The onboard camera actually makes it look a bit more forgiving than it is to the driver. Of course, in the world of virtual racing, the driver's not having to worry about a bit of discomfort from riding over sausage curbs. But if they go too far with it, they will find themselves pointing in the wrong direction. And Will Harper does not want to give up this battle for the moment. He's done a mighty job so far. A mighty effort from Will Harper at the moment as he pushes towards that podium spot. That podium spot which will see him taking home a nice haul of points, actually, and doing very nicely in that midfield battle against Barry Clayton is his next competitor. Only 9 points separating them in the standings at the moment. So a podium here could really pay dividends. Will Harper currently on for an improved Sector 2 as well, so he's flying on this lap. But as I mentioned previously, will it be enough to get past? I'm not sure if it will. Barry Clayton certainly knows how to defend, and he is going to have a lot of pace in under his belt if he wants to get through and get past Barry Clayton. It's about half a second separate them now as we come onto the start-finish straight. That gap staying pretty much the same as we bang through the gears up towards 6th gear. These cars aren't the reviest race cars in the world, that 1.4 multi-air engine, and it is another very fast lap from Will Harper there as we head into turn 1 under braking. He tries to get ever closer, echoing his line there. And on exit, we'll be hoping to gain as we head down towards turn 3. Barry Clayton might start to think about splitting or breaking that slipstream, if you will, but Will Harper is still getting closer. Puts his car up the inside there, but he's a little bit too far back. But they make contact. There's contact between Will Harper and Barry Clayton. Both drivers wanting to get back on track as quickly as possible, and I believe Will Harper is waiting for Barry Clayton. A very sportsmanlike behaviour. Well done to Will Harper for that. I believe he was a little bit enthusiastic under braking, shall we say, desperate to get that move done. He's been following for so long, and it is a mighty skill to follow for as long as he did, but unfortunately it all came undone under braking into turn 3 there, and he had to allow Barry Clayton to continue. That puts Andrew Brammer up into P3. P3 for Andrew Brammer for the moment then. There's about 4 seconds between him and Barry Clayton. Barry Clayton and Will Harper might want to work together if they want to try and get back past Andrew Brammer up onto the podium scoring positions again. Although it may be too little too late. We've only got just over 5 minutes in this race to go. This race has absolutely flown by. It's been a brilliant race here at Albert Park. Battles going on throughout the field. Matt Daly and Colin Kennedy, meanwhile, haven't had much screen time at all because they've just been doing a very impressive job out in front. P1 and P2 for both of them. The gap has stayed pretty much the same. Colin Kennedy's been able to match Matt Daly's pace. Even with that damage and even with the harder compound of tyres, we may start to see those come into their own as we enter the final stage of this race now. But yes, not much screen time for these two. Colin Kennedy actually setting a fastest lap of the race. I'm glad we're on board for that. 1:53.2. That is a blistering time from Colin Kennedy. But yes, the battle has been further down the order, and it has been two mighty battles. The battle between Paul Milman and Will Inglis, and the battle between Will Harper and Barry Clayton, which unfortunately came to not the end that we are expecting, as we see Barry Clayton starting another lap. Will Harper still just as close as he was a few laps ago, so we may still get this battle. It may not be for the podium, but the battle between these two may carry on, and these two, as I am sure, enjoy racing each other very much and are just glad to be doing that. Even if it is only for P4, still a very nice set of points to take away from that. Colin Kennedy actually a little bit closer to Matt Daly than the previous go-around of the circuit. About 3.2 tenths of a second, or 3.2 tenths, 3.2 seconds separating them. As we see Alex Smith, I've just invented a new driver. Alex Smith able to get past Paul Milman now. Paul Milman currently running P8, although he's gaining on him down the straight. Will he think about a move up the inside? I think he's a bit too far back, unfortunately. He still remains P8 for the moment as we head through turn 3, where it all went wrong for Barry Clayton and Will Harper. Only half a second separating these two drivers as we enter sector 2. Paul Milman may be putting the pressure on Alex Smith now as we come to the final stages of the race. All important points to be scored here at Albert Park at this stage in the season. Colin Kennedy is certainly gaining on Matt Daly. Matt Daly may be struggling for pace a little bit as those medium tyres come towards the end of their life. Only 1.7 seconds separating now as we enter the final part of this lap. I all thought it was over and done for Colin Kennedy after that lap 1 instant, but I shouldn't have counted him out. You can never count Colin Kennedy out, and there's only a second and a half separating these two now as we enter the final 5 minutes of this race. Colin Kennedy will soon be starting to enjoy the effects of the slipstream. Will Harper has got past Barry Clayton in the meantime. I didn't realise that these two were starting to battle so much. We're starting to see now, I think, the hard tyre come into its own. The medium tyre run is maybe starting to struggle for pace just a little bit as we enter the final stages of the race now. Will Harper getting a little bit of, oh, that's Barry Clayton rather, getting a little bit of a lock-up as we come towards the end of this lap. Will Harper able to get past him with a very nice move there. Barry Clayton looks like he was forced a little bit wide, and Barry Clayton, Will Inglis able to go up the inside there. Currently running P4 now, Will Inglis. Will Harper, I apologise. Will Harper currently running P4. Still in the same position that he was prior to that instant that he had a couple of laps ago. He may be thinking if the hard or medium tyres are starting to struggle as much as they are, P3 may still be on the cards for Will Harper, believe it or not. Will Harper can see him out in front there just a little bit. You're starting to see glimpses of that very nice livery. Probably my favourite of the season is Andrew Brammer's livery, reminiscent of the mid-2000s Honda livery in F1, sponsored by Blue Spark, of course, and I am certainly an advocate for Blue Spark tuning boxes. If you haven't checked them out and you've got a multi-air-powered Alfa, certainly do check them out. They are brilliant, although your wallet may not thank you given the current fuel prices. As we see about 3 seconds now between Andrew Brammer and Will Harper, we are going to join the action once again between Colin Kennedy and Matt Daly as they head into Sector 2. Colin Kennedy is now less than a second behind Matt Daly as he comes into Turn 10, or what would have been Turn 10. That's not Turn 10 at all, that is Turn 12. We're now at the final part of the lap between these two, and there's less than a second separating them as we come ready to set onto the start-finish straight again. Colin Kennedy is absolutely flying at the moment. He is setting purple sectors on those hard tyres with a low fuel load, and he is gaining on Matt Daly down the start-finish straight. Only ever so slightly, but that slipstream is going to be getting more and more powerful. He was nearly a second faster on the previous lap then. So absolutely flying at the moment is Colin Kennedy as he heads through Turn 1. It looks like Matt Daly's tyres are really starting to come away from him. He's been pushing to keep Colin Kennedy behind, and we're starting to see the ill effects of that. It looks to be slowly this race is coming away from Matt Daly as we see Barry Clayton and Will Harper. Will Harper looks to have had an incident there. His rear wing absolutely destroyed, currently in P5 at the moment. He may be looking to get that home in P5. It doesn't look like he can. He has to return to the pits. What a shame for Will Harper. His race has come undone in such a way in the previous couple of laps, but there's now half a second separating Matt Daly and Colin Kennedy as we head into Sector 2 now. Under braking, Colin Kennedy able to get just a little bit closer again, and on exit, he's able to carry so much more speed. That car looks like it's got so much more grip, and in all of this, Will Inglis finds himself currently running P5. Alex Smith P6 as well, owing to Will Harper in the pit, but Will Inglis has had a very nice recovery. As we see the two leaders then coming through turn 10, one of the fastest parts of the circuit. As we see still half a second between these two as we head into Sector 3 now. What a shame for Will Harper that his race has come undone in such a manner. These two in an absolute league of their own, though. About 30 seconds separating them and the rest of the field. About 32 seconds between P2 and P3. These two have been pushing each other, as we have seen throughout the season. And what a shame for the rest of the field. Those battles that we saw earlier on ending the way that they did. But Colin Kennedy is only 2 tenths behind Matt Daly, right on the gearbox of him now as we come into the final corner. A lockup from Matt Daly could prove very costly. They are side by side. They're heading through the final corner. Matt Daly had to run on the grass a little bit. He's able to defend just about. But Colin Kennedy is going to be the one who has the advantage down the start-finish straight, carrying all that speed. Matt Daly defending for his life as we head onto another lap there. Colin Kennedy opting to go for the outside line. Then is he going to be later under braking? Can he afford to be? No, he can't from where he was on the track. We're now on the penultimate lap of the penultimate, or not the penultimate. Yeah, we are on the penultimate lap of the penultimate race of the penultimate round. Then, as we head into turn 3, then Matt Daly did a mighty job to defend from Colin Kennedy on the end of the previous lap. Is he going to be able to do the same again? There's just 3 tenths separating them now. Matt Daly is going to have to be very careful that it doesn't overdrive those absolutely destroyed medium tyres as we head into Sector 2 now. As we can just see, Colin's car just looks so much more confident on corner exit. It looks so much more confident on track now. Those hard tyres were absolutely the right decision. I imagine we're going to see quite a few more drivers running those harder tyres in race 2. As we see them get ready to head onto one of the faster parts of the circuit now. They are near enough side by side, but Matt Daly once again is going to do a more mighty job of defending from Colin Kennedy, who knows not to put a nose in yet because Matt Daly is going to defend it with all of his might. As we see him coming down towards the turn 11, turn 12 complex, that tricky part of the circuit, which can see you absolutely destroy your race, especially if you have to rather ruin tyres, as does Matt Daly, but Matt Daly negotiates that part of the circuit in a very talented manner, as we see Barry Clayton getting past Alex Smith getting past Will Inglis, rather. Alex Smith currently running P5. He has come out of nowhere all of a sudden to be in very nice position in this race. As we see Matt Daly having to take so much less speed than Colin Kennedy through some of these corners, but he is able to just about defend. Will we see the same mistake that he made on the last lap happen again, which saw Colin Kennedy nearly get past? He does nearly go on the grass, riding that curb there. He's able to box off Colin Kennedy and make his car as wide as possible and defend that. Although Colin Kennedy running very fast on corner exit there, he's going to try and squeeze him, is Matt Daly, but Colin Kennedy now has the inside line. Is he going to be braver on the braking? I think he can be, with that much higher tyre life left in his car. They are near enough side by side between these two, and Colin Kennedy has the inside line. Matt Daly tries to box him off, tries to brake as late as possible from the middle part of the circuit there, but under braking locks up and gets it all wrong. He's facing the wrong direction and is able to carry on, but has pretty much handed Colin Kennedy P1 on the very last lap of this race. As we head into turn 3 now then, I believe I've probably got my audio levels up a little bit too high for the excitement that is going on in this race, and I apologise if that is the case, but this has been a brilliant race 1 here at Albert Park as we head into Sector 2 with Colin Kennedy is about 5 seconds separating him and Matt Daly. What an impressive drive from Colin Kennedy to get to where he is at the moment. From P1, he found himself pointing the wrong direction, or found himself off track at least. We didn't quite see what happened, unfortunately. And he spent the entire race patiently waiting to catch up to Matt Daly, keeping that delta to about 4 seconds, and using that extra tyre life at the end to push towards Matt Daly. Matt Daly overcooking at the very end there, trying to defend. What an absolutely brilliant drive it has been from Colin Kennedy. Shows why he deserves this championship here in the second half of 2021. As he heads through Sector 2 now, then heading towards Sector 3, it looks to be Colin Kennedy's win. Carrying damage the entire race, running a harder compound of tyres. It was the strategy in the end. He made it a little bit more difficult for himself, but that just makes it even more impressive. What a mighty effort from Colin Kennedy, and there's still a little bit of a battle going on for P3. Barry Clayton getting ever closer to Andrew Brammer, but it doesn't look like it is to be for Barry Clayton. The podium, unfortunately, owing to that earlier issue. As we see Colin Kennedy heading round the penultimate corner now. I am sure we're going to see some victory donuts from him on this occasion. What an almighty drive from Colin Kennedy it has been. He certainly made it difficult for himself, but Colin Kennedy crosses the line to take the race 1 victory. Commiserations to Matt Daly, who, owing to that very, very late incident in race 1, takes home P2, comes across the line to take home P2 in just a second. Seeing that he's really struggling with those tyres, he doesn't cross the line just yet. He wants to get started as quick as possible. Otherwise, Andrew Bram is going to be coming across the line anytime soon. He is able to carry on though, and should be able to cross the line just in the nick of time. Matt Daly must have been really struggling with those tyres, so commiserations, but well done to him for hanging on for as long as he did. It is still an almighty P2 for Matt Daly. Andrew Brammer then really was getting quite close to Matt Daly at the end there. Takes home P3, rounding out the podium with Barry Clayton after an earlier race incident, taking home P4. Alex Smith. Actually, a pretty surprising drive from Alex Smith, working his way up through the order to take home P5. He had an earlier race incident as well, but is able to cross the line P5, so well done to Alex Smith. A nice haul of points from there, and followed closely by Will Inglis. Again, another earlier race incident, but a fairly decent recovery. He just about avoids the parked car of Alex Smith there. Colin Kennedy currently on his parade lap, as we see Matt Daly returning to the pit, and Paul Millman leading the AM race then, taking home P7, with John Baker bringing his car home in P8. Are we about to see some victory donuts from Colin Kennedy? Have we just missed some victory donuts from Colin Kennedy? I think we might have. No victory donuts from Colin Kennedy. They would have been very well deserved, Colin. I hope you have some prepared for the end of the championship, if it is to be. Because it'd be a shame to end the championship without more Colin Kennedy victory donuts. I hope we have, at the end of Abu Dhabi, actually, I hope we have everyone enjoying some donuts a la 2018 F1. Although, talking about victory donuts in Abu Dhabi, it's a little bit premature for the moment. We still have race 2 here at Albert Park to go for yet. And if it is anything like race 1, I am thoroughly looking forward to it. I'll see you in just a moment here for race 2. I believe John Baker's actually out of fuel. Is he going to be able to cross the line in time? I don't know if he'll actually be able to cross the line there. He might have ran it a little bit close on fuel. Unfortunately for John Baker, I think that is an unfortunate end to his race that I wasn't quite expecting to see. What a shame that John Baker's race has ended in the way that it has. But still, we'll join you in race 2 with a little bit of a corrected stream, although I believe you caught most of the action there. Some of the video needs tweaking. I have just had a little watch back and seen. We'll see you in just a moment for race 2. And welcome back to the action here at Albert Park. And we've just under a minute to go until lights out. We are lined up on the grid for this reverse grid part of the weekend. It is Will Inglis. Oh no, it's Will Harper currently on pole position after his incidents in race 1. He should be on for a very nice result if all things go right for him. We saw he had some pretty good pace here, and he is currently running the hard tyre as well. A few more drivers running the hard tyre this time. Most importantly, perhaps, Matt Daly, as he tries to charge through the field with Colin Kennedy. He has opted for the hard tyre this time, not wanting to repeat of the end of race 1. As is Andrew Brammer, as is Barry Clayton, as is Will Inglis, as is Colin Kennedy, and Will Harper. So a few more drivers opting for the hard tyre this time than just Will and Colin. So a little bit more interesting strategy this time. We might see a few more drivers changing it up. We have seen a few more drivers changing it up, but we hear the revs rising now, and there is 6 red lights on the gantry. And we are away. Looks like Will Inglis once again getting a very nice launch. He's edging out on Will Harper just a little bit then. But someone we do have to watch out for is the car behind. Alex Smith has gained just a little bit, but Will Inglis has the better line. It is Will Harper who is now trying to fight back against Will Inglis heading into turn 3. He's lost out on P1 heading into turn 1, but he's gaining back just a little bit as we see Barry Clayton and Matt Daly side by side as we see Colin Kennedy as well getting past Andrew Brammer as he pushes his way through the field. He hasn't got quite as good of a launch as Matt Daly, and there's big contact between Will Inglis and Barry Clayton. That has taken a few cars out. That stopped Colin Kennedy from this track. It's taken Alex Smith, Andrew Brammer, Barry Clayton, Will Inglis, and I believe, is that everyone? I think that's everyone. John Baker as well, perhaps. Yes, quite a big instance at the start of lap 1, and Will Harper, who I was about to say has enjoyed the benefits of that, has just spun out. Oh dear, he sees he was running in the lead of the race and he now has to wait a very long time to rejoin the track safely. Race 2 hasn't gone his way at all. That was the type of incident that he needed to capitalise on. He now finds himself running P8. Matt Daly currently in the lead then. Colin Kennedy in 3rd. Paul Millman in 2nd for the moment. As you see, Matt Daly, is he weaving to break the toe by the looks of things? Maybe feeling a little bit of pressure from Paul Millman. Maybe Paul Millman running quite quick on track at the moment. Well, that was a pretty chaotic start to lap 1. If you see Paul Millman's car nearly getting away from him, then heading into turn 11. Will Inglis having to unfortunately pit, I imagine, for repairs. But less than a second separating Matt Daly and Paul Millman, but less than half a second separating Colin Kennedy and Paul Millman. Paul Millman will be feeling under pressure. And these two leaders from race 1 will soon be battling each other again, much in a similar way. We saw Colin Kennedy be behind Matt Daly for so long in race 1, but there was a difference in tyre compound. This time, both running the hard compound tyres. So if Colin can dispatch of Paul Millman, we may see a very interesting battle developing between these two as we see Colin Kennedy getting past Paul Millman around the outside, or trying to. He rode the curbs though, was a little bit too greedy perhaps, a little bit too desperate to get that move done, and he collides with the wall. He gets the car spun around and collides with the wall. This is not the race weekend that Colin Kennedy would have wanted. It has not been his ideal weekend. Unfortunately, Will Inglis having to disconnect from the server there. But yes, both races not starting in a very Colin Kennedy-esque manner, shall we say. Finds himself running P6 at the moment. Paul Millman still in P2 then, with a little bit of a gap to the car behind. Andrew Brammer in P3. John Baker close behind him as well. He's found himself in P4 all of a sudden. This has been quite a change by the order. John Baker running a little bit wide there. Matt Daly out in front by about 2 seconds. With not much competition at the moment, he should be feeling fairly confident then. This is the exact type of weekend he needed to get closer to P2 in the standings. Taking away as many points as he will in fact be in P2 in the standings, and it is all to play for as we enter the final round in Abu Dhabi in the next fortnight. The closest battle on track then at the moment is between John Baker and Barry Clayton. Barry Clayton pushing towards the car in front as they head into Sector 2. Currently, both on the hard... Oh, no, stand me corrected. Barry Clayton, or John Baker, rather, running the medium tyre. Barry Clayton on the hard tyre, able to hang it round the outside and head down turn 10. John Baker making sure he gets out of the way there, running on the grass just a little bit. Unfortunately, luckily, the car didn't come away from him then, and he's able to carry on. See just how violent the switch back through turn 11, turn 12 is. It really is more tricky than it looks on, say, a track diagram, or as it looks to the average bystander. It looks like quite an easy, simple left-hander followed by a simple right-hander, but there's so much speed and forces involved that can be really quite a complicated part of the circuit. We may see then Barry Clayton aiming to get closer to Andrew Brammer. We saw at the end of race 1, he was starting to edge ever closer to Andrew Brammer out in front. In fact, in much the similar position, it was between Andrew Brammer in P3 and Barry Clayton in P4. After Barry Clayton's earlier instance, he was actually edging ever closer, but it wasn't. There just weren't enough laps left in the race. We may start to see that battle that we were unfortunately weren't able to see. We may see that happen now here in race 2. So only 8 cars on track at the moment, and we see Colin Kennedy getting past John Baker. Colin Kennedy now running P5, then he is... there's over 20 minutes to go in this race. We see John Baker trying to use that slipstream to as much of an advantage as possible. We may see Colin Kennedy still come out with a very nice result here indeed. He's got over 20 minutes, and we know what Colin Kennedy can do behind the wheel of one of these cars. I wouldn't count him out, as I shouldn't have counted him out in race 1. Don't count him out in race 2 either. As we see Colin Kennedy setting a personal best, or actually a session best, a purple sector in Sector 3 on the previous lap. Matt Daly currently running purple Sector 1 though. He's hoping to build that gap between him and Paul Millman, and he could use Paul Millman, Andrew Brammer and Barry Clayton as pretty much as moving traffic cones between him and Colin Kennedy to try and hamper Colin Kennedy as much as possible and make sure that the race 2 win is more secure for him than the race 1 was. Of course, the race 1 win wasn't secure enough for Matt Daly. Matt Daly didn't end up taking the race 1 win, as we see him riding over the curbs there. Obviously, track limits go out a little bit wider than the curb that is put there here at Albert Park. They are a little bit more forgiving at that part of the circuit because you just have to be, I imagine, with such high speeds involved. As we less than a second separating John Baker and Will Harper. There's actually a 3-way battle going on here. Alex Smith is on the lap down though, owing to earlier damage. He had to pit for that. Will Harper will have to negotiate 2 of these cars, and as he comes up side by side with John Baker now, then he disposes of him and gets ready to get past that lapped traffic. Although the car comes away from it a little bit, gets a little bit twitchy over that curb there. This may be owing to those earlier incidents. He puts the rear wing in a wall there. I don't believe there's too much damage taken away from that, but maybe the tyre's starting to struggle a bit with those earlier incidents. As we see Colin Kennedy set his fastest lap then. In fact, the fastest lap of the race at 154.2. That's over a second clear of Matt Daly's fastest lap at 155.2. Or rather, is a second clear of his fastest lap there. Although Matt Daly's still putting in quite a pace there. But Colin Kennedy certainly showing that he means business now. As we see Andrew Brammer now about 1.3 seconds away from Paul Millman. He's getting ever closer now as we see Paul Millman outbraking himself just a little bit there. That allows him to get within a few tenths as we head down the fast part of the circuit. They're going to be near enough side by side as we head into turn 11 now. They're going to have to play the cars right if they want to carry on being side by side through that part of the track. It looks like Paul Millman is putting in as much of the defence as he can though. Andrew Brammer trying to go round the outside there. He's going to run out of circuit though. He's going to have to use his curbs. Paul Millman going a little bit slower than him though. He did a very good job to avoid there, make sure there wasn't enough contact between them two. It would have been pretty much an aeroplane crash at that speed. But yeah, Paul Millman putting in a mighty defence so far to keep him behind in this fastest part of the circuit. All this battling though is bringing Barry Clayton into the mix, but Barry Clayton's getting slowed down by it as well. Riding those curbs not helping him either. Barry Clayton getting slowed down by it as we see Andrew Brammer getting past for P2. There's now a 3-way battle for P2, but that's about to become a 4-way battle for P2. A front axle lockup for Andrew Brammer. Then that should bring Paul Millman pretty much to his side there. He's got a little bit of breathing space though. He starts the next lap with a 4-way train for P2. This runs down to Colin Kennedy in P5. Colin's going to try and use this to his advantage as much as possible as we see him pretty much getting past Barry Clayton now side by side with Barry Clayton. He has the inside line. He should be able to box him off from here. He has Paul Millman to contend with though. He does get past Barry Clayton. Colin Kennedy now running P4 with Andrew Brammer still in P2 for the moment. He builds a little bit of a gap to Andrew Brammer out in front. Barry Clayton thinking about getting back past though, trying to come up alongside him. He's going to have the outside line now, and I don't believe he's going to be able to get past from there unless he's very brave under braking. As we see Colin Kennedy now focusing, now aiming his sights on Paul Millman in P3. I imagine Andrew Brammer is asking Paul Millman to put in an even stronger defence than what we saw him put up against Andrew. Paul Andrew will be hoping that Paul can keep Colin behind him for as long as possible, as we see Colin come up near enough side by side with him now, although he's not quite close enough yet. He will be as we head down towards turn 10. Side by side then, Colin has the inside line. Is he going to be braver under braking? No, he thinks better of it. I was about to say he does think better of it and backs off, but he is able to actually go side by side. Something's gone wrong for Andrew Brammer though. His car's near enough camouflage with the grass there. I didn't quite see it at first, but Andrew Brammer goes a little bit wide there, goes over the grass, spins around, puts himself in a wall. I don't know if he spun around entirely. He was able to carry on, able to keep his momentum going, but he finds himself in P5, and that is the downside of being involved in such an exciting battle train like that. One tiny error and you can find yourself from being second spot on the podium to near enough in the midfield. In fact, in the midfield at this point. So that battle has not gone Andrew Brammer's way at all. He has got some pace. He has demonstrated some pace. We see Barry Clayton now actually getting past Paul Millman. Paul Millman now the stopping factor between him and Colin Kennedy. So Colin Kennedy not able to get past Paul Millman. Barry Clayton was. That sees Barry Clayton now running P2 as we start, as we come on to the start of the next lap, and down to start finish straight. Paul Millman's got an almighty job to keep Colin Kennedy behind as we head into turn 1. As we see Paul Millman weaving just a little bit to try and break that toe. Will Colin think about a move up the inside? No, he follows Paul Millman through that corner. About a second separating Colin and Barry Clayton now, who will be hoping, Colin will be hoping to battle in just a moment's time. As we see Paul Millman defending with all his might. Paul Millman has the inside line. Does he? No, he breaks quite a bit earlier than Colin Kennedy. Colin Kennedy getting a bit of a slide on, heading around that corner. And Colin was actually able to take the inside line. He was able to get round Paul Millman under braking and take the inside line. Almighty effort from Colin under braking there to get past that corner, get round that corner in that manner, getting past Paul Millman for P3. Colin Kennedy now on the podium then, but there's 17 seconds separating him and Matt Daly. Matt Daly has been able to absolutely walk away while all this battling has been going on. Yes, we saw at the end of race 1 the gap between P1 and P2 and the rest of the field be about 32 seconds. We're about halfway into race 2. And that gap is very much about the same. That gap is pretty much the same now, about 16 seconds. The big difference being, it's only Matt Daly out there. Colin Kennedy has not been able to break away from the rest of the field as he was in race 1. This will be pivotal in this race 2 result here. Matt Daly should be feeling much more comfortable than he was in race 1, especially on that harder compound of tyres. See, Colin hasn't quite had an answer for Barry Clayton yet. Andrew Brammer's done an almighty job, or a very good job indeed, to catch up to Paul Millman. He's only about a second behind him already, despite that earlier instance. As we see Colin getting ever closer to the rear end of Barry Clayton's car now, under the slipstream. He should be able to gain a little bit of time. There's about 3/10 separating them as we head into turn 1. Will he be thinking about a move up the inside? Will he be thinking about a move under braking? We certainly know Colin Kennedy from pull one off. He doesn't. He chooses to follow Barry Clayton around. He knows Barry Clayton's a very fast driver and will be taking a very nice line through there. As we see Andrew Brammer getting past Paul Millman. I don't think that was contact. I think that was curb, or just a little bit, putting a little bit too much load through the car there. That saw Andrew Brammer in a wall. This race hasn't been as successful as race 1 was for Andrew Brammer. Still currently running P5, but we've seen his efforts be undone a couple of times by unfortunate incidents. He will now be feeling the pressure from Will Harper. Will Harper thinking he now fancies his chances for P5. Second time that P5 has been on the cards for Will Harper. The second time that Will Harper wouldn't have thought that P5 has been on the cards for Will Harper. Incidents in both races for Will, as we see Colin now getting past Barry Clayton, heading down towards turn 10. Colin Kennedy absolutely setting the speed traps alight there. 139 miles an hour, able to get past Barry Clayton now, and he can now focus his sights on getting past getting towards Matt Daly now. He's got near enough, makes no difference, 20 seconds to make up in the 11 remaining minutes in this race now. Not that many laps to go. He's going to have to be seconds faster than Matt Daly and hope on an error from Matt Daly if he wants any chance of a race 2 victory here at Albert Park, as he already finds 1.9 seconds between him and Barry Clayton. Will Harper disconnecting from the server. I'm not sure what happens there. Maybe a technical issue. What a shame to see his race come to an end like that, as Andrew Brammer getting past the lapped traffic of Alex Smith. Alex Smith, I'm sure, treating this like a test session at this point. That actually will be a very useful thing for him at this stage in the season. Any experience you can get in the car will be very useful as we come towards the later stages of our use of the Tarsus FA1 car. I'm not going to say any more than that. I don't believe I'm allowed to say any more than that. I don't want to let too much out the bag there, but you never know. This might be one of the last few opportunities that some of these drivers get to use these cars, so testing opportunities will be very useful indeed as we come towards the later stages of the season. Now, Colin Kennedy is absolutely flying at the moment, having cleared all that traffic in front of them. Will it be enough, though? I am not entirely sure. He went purple sector 3 last time round. His previous lap being a 154.1, that was fast. Oh, no, sorry, his previous lap being a 154.6, that was faster than Matt Daly's previous best lap. And it is actually not that far off Matt Daly's best lap of the race so far. These two currently fastest on track out there at the moment. As we enter this stage in the race, we're just past the halfway stage. We start to find all the drivers finding their route, finding their groove, finding their rhythm, their own little bit of circuit for them to occupy. As we see, Alex Smith should be able to take P7 as he eventually comes around to lap Will Harper, who's disconnected, but it looks like Alex Smith might be carrying a bit of damage there or struggling with the car as we see him make contact with the wall there. He's now carrying some rear end damage to add to his troubles in P8 at the moment. This race really hasn't gone his way, has it? But yes, so with the effectively 6 remaining drivers in this race, they should be able to find their own bit of space out on track, with quite a few seconds separating everyone now, so they can focus on banging in those fastest laps running the harder compound tyres. We only have, in this race left, we only have John Baker running the medium tyres at the moment. Everyone else on those hard tyres, which should have plenty of life to get them towards the end with the final 10 minutes of this race to go now. So we should start to see some, maybe effectively a second quali session. That'd be quite interesting, as we see the gap between Matt Daly and Colin Kennedy dropping down, but Colin wishes it was dropping down at an earlier stage in the race, I am sure, because he's showing he's got the pace to provide a challenge to Matt Daly. He's just a little bit too far back. What a shame for Colin Kennedy. Although, I'm sure he'll still be feeling fairly happy with a P2, especially after that P1 that he took in the previous race. See Matt Daly, the Lone Ranger out there, in the lead of the race as he has been for so long. I'm sure his sponsors wouldn't be very happy with us if this was the real world of racing, although this is the real world of virtual racing. His sponsors wouldn't be entirely happy with us because he'd be getting no screen time out in the front at the moment. I'm sure they can compare notes with Colin Kennedy's sponsors, as we see a lockup from Matt Daly there. Nearly missed that corner, actually. I'm sure they could compare notes to Colin Kennedy's sponsors. Halfords on the side of his car there, as he often is the victim of his own success and doesn't get that much screen time on occasion because he just does such a good job out there. And he's doing a good job out there at the moment as he gains ever closer to Matt Daly in P1 at the moment. As we see Barry Clayton then, he's currently on the podium. It was a position he found himself in race 1, and unfortunately that was somewhat taken away from him from an instance kind of at the midway point of race 1. But he can now enjoy that podium, that place on the podium there. In fact, it should provide him a very nice haul of points compared to Will Harper in the driver's standings. Obviously, the weekend not going Will Harper's way at all, having to return to the pits in the end. When a nice haul of points should have separated him from Barry Clayton, but we see Barry Clayton perhaps edging ever closer to George Brooke Battersby, who's not present this weekend. He may be on for a fight with George Brooke Battersby for P5 in the driver's standings. Although I say P5, that might as well be P4 because Alex Smith is very close as well. Only 4 points separating George Brooke Battersby and him in the standings. All to play for, other than the actual leader of the Pro Championship, all to play for then in those standings. As is the case in the AM Championship, with Paul Milman currently leading that AM Championship. He will take the AM win if things stay as they are at the moment. So we'll be all focusing on that AM battle, I am sure, as well as all the other racing going on at Abu Dhabi in 2 weeks. This season has absolutely flown by. 11 rounds have absolutely shot past. It has been a very interesting series to commentate on. I and co-commentator Lewis Bowers have thoroughly enjoyed commentating on the races that I've been able to see so far this year. Every single weekend has provided some brilliant action, some properly exciting racing action, which you'll be able to read more about in the sim racing column that will be part of the Alpha Driver magazine in next month's issue. So if you enjoy these streams, you can enjoy reading more about them in the magazine next month. As we see, Colin Kennedy still closing that gap to Matt Daly, down less than 15 seconds. It now stands at, he's made about 4 to 5 seconds in the past 5 minutes. It wasn't going to be, that rate is not enough, unfortunately, to close up to the lead, unless we see an error from Matt Daly in the later stages of this race. It's happened multiple times in his championship already, where we've seen a race become undone on the very last part of the race, or very last section of the race, if you will, where drivers who have looked fairly comfortable have had one small incident, and that 12 seconds can go by very quickly. As we see Colin banking in his fastest lap of the race so far, a 1:53 dead there. That was a very impressive lap there. It looks to be that the pace deficit between the two is now pretty apparent. There's now about 2 seconds between them, lap by lap. Colin, if he can force an error from Matt Daly, may be able to put the pressure on Matt Daly after all. And that will be certainly an exciting end to race 2 here at Albert Park. As we see him starting to walk away. As we see, actually, a little bit of a twitch from the back end of Colin Kennedy's car there as he got close to that sausage curb. He doesn't want to do that too often. We saw him do it we saw a few drivers do it in qualifying. We saw him do it in race 1, and we don't want to see a repeat of that in race 2. Actually, did we see him do it in race 1? I don't believe we did. We saw him do it in qualifying. I apologise for that mistake there. It was about 14 seconds separating him and Barry Clayton. So Colin Kennedy is fastest man on track by quite some margin at the moment. He's spurred on by the possibility of a race 2 win here at Albert Park. He set another purple sector 1, a 35.7, absolutely flying out there at the moment. Worn tyres, he doesn't care. All he cares about is the fact that that fuel load is getting lighter, and that multi-air engine is as strong as torquey, and as torquey as you'd expect a 1.4 multi-air engine to be. See flames on the overrun there as he heads into Sector 2 then, or rather into Sector 3, beg my pardon. As we come towards the end of the lap then, less than 13 seconds separating him and Matt Daly. It wasn't an amazing Sector 2 for Colin Kennedy. As we come on to the next lap then, there's less than 5 minutes to go in this race, and Matt Daly is starting to respond to the challenge of the car behind. He sets his best lap of the race so far, a 1:53.9. Still a second slower than Colin Kennedy's best, but quite some margin away from his previous best, which was in the 1:55s. So Matt Daly showing that it's still his race to lose. He means business, and he is not letting Colin take this one away relatively easily like he did in race 1. So as it stands at the moment, with just under 5 minutes to go, it is Matt Daly currently leads the race with about 13 seconds clear of Colin Kennedy, who currently runs P2, trying to get ever closer to Matt Daly, although those efforts may be in vain unless he can force a late error from Matt Daly. As we see Barry Clayton currently running P3, rounding out the podium there. A very nice job after his troubles in race 1 and at the start of race 2, he finds himself currently running for 3rd, the bottom spot of the podium, so well done to Barry for that. As we see Paul Millman leading the AM race at the moment, a little bit of an error from Paul there, sees him only a few seconds ahead of Andrew Brammer as we enter the final stage of this race, so it's one to watch out for, the battle for P4 as we enter the final few laps now. Paul Millman currently leading the AM race from Andrew Brammer, who currently is P5 at the moment. Behind Andrew Brammer, we have John Baker currently running P6 at the moment, in his own kind of part of the race where he can enjoy getting a little bit more experience in the car, lapping without too much troubles from any other traffic. And we have, rounding out the field then, currently still in the race at the moment, we have Alex Smith currently running P7. We're just over 2 minutes to go in this race, and I'd quite like to watch the gap between Andrew Brammer and Paul Millman. Will it shrink down even further? Will another mistake from Paul Millman see Andrew Brammer be able to get past as we start Sector 3 of this race then? Matt Daly, meanwhile, is setting more personal bests, a 1:53.7, so he's enjoying the benefits of those hard tyres, unlike his situation in race 1. As his fuel load starts to get lighter as well, he can push towards the end of this race then and start to keep that gap fairly consistent between him and Colin. Maybe we might see a few more drivers struggling with fuel loads. Of course, so much of this lap is wide open throttle. These 1.4 multi-air engines, as technologically advanced as they are, aren't the most fuel efficient things in the world, if we are honest. And although no race engine is when you're at full chat for so long. But yes, at full chat for so long, we saw John Baker struggling with the fuel loads towards the end of race 1. And we might see that from a couple more drivers here in race 2, especially if they've been pushing for a lot of the race. There's only about a second and a half separating Andrew Brammer and Paul Millman now as we head down towards turn 3. Will another error from Paul Millman see Andrew Brammer battling for P4 at this very late stage in the race? As we hear spits of flames popping out the back of the exhaust of this 1.4 multi-air powered car. It's Andrew Brammer that we're on board with at the moment. Currently running P5, less than a second separating him and Paul Millman as we head down into Sector 2 then. Very close together now as we get ready to head through the high speeds part of the circuit. About 8 tenths will that gap come down as we head to the braking zone now. As we see Andrew Brammer looking like he's just a little bit more confident on turning, and maybe there's a little bit more grip in his car than there is in Paul Millman's. He's gained through that corner now about half a second, and he now has the slipstream to play with. We're now on the penultimate lap of this race. This might come down to the wire, folks, as we head through turn 11 and turn 12. So easy to get wrong, as we saw a tiny bit of, a little hint of oversteer kick into Andrew Brammer's car there. And we see Colin Kennedy as well setting a 152.9. Impressive lap from Colin Kennedy then. But Andrew Brammer is a driver we're focusing on at the moment. We're on the final lap of this race as the leaders head through turn 3. There's only 4.5 seconds separating them. There's been an error on Matt Daly's part, but we are still on board with Andrew Brammer as he's trying to find a way past Paul Millman. Paul Millman left a little bit on the table there, and it allows Andrew Brammer to edge ever closer as we head through the final corner then. These two start their final lap, and there's 2 tenths separating them. We're going to watch them as they head into turn 1, that heavy braking zone. They switch around, and they are side by side heading into turn 1. Under braking, Andrew Brammer is able to get past Paul Millman, but Paul Millman certainly defended it well. An almighty effort from Paul Millman there, and we are going to join the action at the front of the pack as they head through Sector 2 then for the final time here at Albert Park, for the final time in this race. About 3.5 seconds separating them. Colin Kennedy wishes that error happened just a little bit sooner, because with a few more laps he may have been able to catch him with his current pace. About 3 seconds now as we see Colin Kennedy riding the curbs. I thought that was going to be it for Colin Kennedy in this race. The entire car kind of lurched forward as we enter Sector 3 now. Still about 3 seconds separating them as we head through turn 14. And the final section of this track now. Matt Daly just has to be conservative, has to play it safe. He's got 2.9 seconds to the car behind. He doesn't have to go crazy as he comes onto the start-finish straight. Exactly what he didn't have in race 1, he has in race 2. Running those hard compound tyres, capitalising on other people's errors. He's kept Colin Kennedy behind and is able to take the race 2 victory here at Albert Park. Colin Kennedy putting in an almighty drive to push towards Matt Daly at the end of this race here, closing that gap to just 3 seconds when it was 20 seconds a few laps ago. He sees P2 on the podium, and I'm sure these two are going to enjoy this parade lap. They pushed each other to new limits here at Albert Park this weekend, and it makes me even more excited for the final round in Abu Dhabi that comes up in a fortnight's time. What an amazing drive from both of these drivers here. Barry Clayton ends up rounding out the podium in P3. What a well-deserved podium for Barry Clayton there, as we see Andrew Brammer coming across the line now, or coming onto the start-finish straight, able to get past Paul Millman in the end. He takes home P4. What a well fought for P4 that was. Carrying some damage on front of his car, actually. I think we have pretty much everyone carrying some damage as we see Paul Millman crossing the line now for P5, and then we have a little bit of a wait for John Baker in P6 and Alex Smith, who is currently a lap down, but we're going to stay on board with the parade lap here as we see the two leaders coming across the line then. So that was certainly a good weekend for some drivers, and not such a good weekend for others as we enter the final round of this season now. with Barry Clayton enjoying this weekend. He'll be gapping Will Harper just a little bit in the championship standing, getting ever closer to P5 and P4. 200 points, P5 is on at the moment, and Barry Clayton should be able to close up on that just a little bit. Paul Millman is another big winner from this weekend. Rob Whitney not present this weekend. He is able to get very close to him in terms of the standings, winning both those AM races. And we have victory donuts from Matt Daly. Thank you very much, Matt, for obliging. Thank you very much for indulging me in those victory donuts, as we see Colin Kennedy bringing the car home. Well-deserved victory donuts for Matt Daly then. To round out a very exciting weekend's worth of racing here at Albert Park. I thoroughly hope you've enjoyed the weekend as much as I have, and I'll see you in a fortnight's time as we come towards the final round of this season, Abu Dhabi, in 2 weeks' time. I'll see you then. Thank you very much.